Hello, everyone, and welcome to That's Fighting. My name is Michael Mayers, and with me, as always, is Nathan Santos. Say hello to the people, Nathan.
What's going on, everyone? Very happy to be back doing the show once again. Mike and I are so happy, a couple week hiatus, but we're back now to preview the most anticipated card of the year, and I don't think I'm wrong in saying that, UFC 251, coming to Yas Island. Yas is the word, isn't it, Mike? I'm so excited for UFC 251, bro. Fight Island, let's kick it off, brother.
To all my queens and kings out there, all I have to say is Yas. And that's exactly where we're starting. We're going to Fight Island, and Enter the Dragon begins with, in the immortal words of Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, the shirt says it all here. The man who started fighting in backyards is now taking a trip over to be the crowning jewel, main eventing here over there in Abu Dhabi. I'm super excited for this. He's stepping in on short notice, as we all well know at this point, on 6 days notice at that, in for Nigerian Gilbert Burns. Now, Gilbert Burns tested positive for COVID during his quarantine in the Las Vegas stint of the testing, and was denied, obviously, travel and has to go and recover. He obviously training in Florida, much like Jorge, actually, to an extent. Florida obviously is being hit very, very heavy in the U.S. with COVID cases running rampant. Jorge steps in, and here we are. Kamaru Usman just did a recent interview with Brett Okamoto, as he normally does, and Jorge went and spoke to Ariel, as he normally does. And we were hearing, honestly, two different sides to a same coin that is this fight. What were some of your takeaways from how you heard Jorge recounting his excitement level of going and fighting, and Kamaru reacting to the challenger in this case being switched on him last second?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from this, as we all well know, is when you throw in a last-minute contender like this to the champ, it becomes a win-win for the contender, right, for the challenger. If Usman didn't have a lot to lose before, he sure does now, right? Now he's going to either lose to somebody on short notice and somebody who he hates nonetheless, or beat a guy, and then there's always an excuse, right? So for that reason, it's obviously a win-win for Jorge, because he's going to step in and either KO him on a week's notice, or lose. And it's like, well, yeah, I only had 7 days to train. I got pizza on my way to the island as I was flying across the freaking world, right? It makes sense. Now, obviously, Jorge said he's not coming off the couch for this fight, right? He's been training, and he says, I'm not maybe in the condition that I was to fight a real fighter like Ben Askren or Darren Till, but I sure am to beat this bum Kamaru Usman. Listen, I love the trash talk, but man, if there's one person I think you have to be in great shape to fight, it's the champ, right? It's Kamaru Usman. Mike, Usman, I think could be such a badass, but when you start to plant those excuses, you take away from your own stature, right? Don't give any excuse. Call out Masvidal. Say, listen, you're 100%, right? Because if you're not, I'm going to whip your ass. And if you are, I'm still going to whip your ass, right? Like, give that mentality to the people watching, that you're going to kick his ass no matter what the circumstance was. Even if he had a full training camp, 7 days notice means absolutely nothing, right?
I had a few problems with what Kamaru Usman was talking to Brett Okamoto about. First of all, his tone, his body language. If you go from a psychologist standpoint, someone who's watching body language, understands micro expressions, you can see this guy's looking down, looking dejected, and there's a lack of confidence. And I don't know if it's a lack of his ability to believe in himself, or a lack of an ability to understand what he needs to do to go in there and beat Jorge. I think what it is the lack of preparation. I think he is like those types of athletes who needs to sit there at the drawing board and have his coaches explain everything for 6 weeks and drill it into him. Him going and planning for someone like Gilbert Burns and trying to beat that person, and then on 6 days notice have to completely change and eradicate all of those game plans that you had and completely replace them. Not everyone's hardwired for that. A lot of fighters, in fact, I believe if Usman wasn't the champion, he might have turned down this fight. There's a lot of pressure, however, because you were the main event, and you know that if you turn that fight down, how it's going to look. So what's the next thing after that? He was speaking about how Jorge, this is a win-win for him. It's on short notice, like you said. And if he wins, then he beat me on short notice, and all these built-in excuses. But in articulating the built-in excuses that Masvidal has, you are giving yourself built-in excuses into almost like he's mortgaging his future in a way. He's sitting there being like, you know what? Hey, look, like this guy came out of nowhere as a random challenger appeared. Look, that's not the mentality from the same guy who, as of 2 months ago, was saying, I'm going to make Masvidal squeal like the pig that he is. I want it to be silent. I want you guys to hear him crying out for help as I'm ground and pounding and beating his face in. What happened to that? Are you somebody whose confidence is contingent, not based on your abilities and fighting someone tomorrow if you have to? Or are you one of those people who has to come in there, have your coaches tell you exactly where to be, X, Y, and Z, and then if you don't have that quote-unquote preparation, you're going to have that lack of confidence? Justin Gaethje had his own reservations about going and stepping in on short notice. He said that was a rule of thumb he never took, except what? For fighting for a championship.
Right.
We need to make exceptions. And I think that he didn't back out of this fight, so I'm not ripping on him for that. But the corny nature of which I'm hearing from him speak about excuses, and I ate food when I thought it was over. I ate a bunch of food, some African food late at night, and it's carb heavy, and I got to worry about getting all that weight off. And he's looking down and to his left. And it's like, are you worried about making weight, or are you considering not making weight so that you don't have to put your title on the line? I'm trying to understand what you're trying to do. And because this is the thing is, humans recognize effort and authenticity. That's not my thought process. That's Justin Gaethje. I know effort, and I know that Usman will put that forth every single time. That's never in question. But away from the cage, your inauthenticity away from the cage can get into your psychology going into the cage. So will he be compromised heading into a fight with a guy who will literally get up and go fight someone in their backyard the next day?
Right. Yeah, it's a huge difference in mentality. And it's one thing that I never thought we'd have to worry about questioning Kamaru Usman's mentality, because he's been such a workhorse for so long that, but then again, you bring up a really good point, which is he's always been prepared. And maybe he is the best guy in the world when he's prepared, but that's not necessarily always the case, right? How are you when everything's on the line and you got to fight no matter what? Good for him for accepting the fight. I imagine either the UFC gave him more money, because obviously he has to accept a fight on short notice now too, against a completely different opponent. And really, there's two kind of schools of thought. The first is it really that different to train for Gilbert Burns than it is Jorge Masvidal? And in one sense, it's pretty similar, right? He's going to be the challenger in the situation is going to be the aggressor. Maybe Usman would say, I'm not going to take him down, Gilbert Burns, because of his jiu-jitsu, and they're probably on a similar striking level. But now against Masvidal, he's got to be thinking, okay, listen, there's no path. My path to victory has to be grappling. And you look at someone who trains with Yoel Romero and you think, well, maybe this guy's not going to necessarily just get grappled in the same way that he would against someone like Damian Maia, who's just like, pure jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So, I'm of the mindset that if we were to see this full training camp, I would probably back Usman all the way. And I think I still probably will if we're going to get into predictions, just because, when you have a full camp and he moved to train with Trevor Whitman, and, we know what Trevor Whitman does with his guys, right? They reach a new level when he can kind of find that synchronicity between fighter and coach. However, the fact, and it's always the case, right? When the guy has nothing to lose, it's hard to bet against him because what for, right? I don't think Jorge is at all afraid of getting knocked out. I don't think he respects Usman striking at all, right? And I think he's confident enough in the years that he's put in fighting off wrestlers who aren't necessarily better grapplers. I mean, in going for submissions. I could see why Usman's train of thought might be now, I'm probably going to beat him. Maybe it's this way, maybe it's that way. Instead of, I'm going to make him squeal like the bitch that he is, because now he's not thinking, I've had my 12 weeks to know exactly where his weaknesses are and how to take him down. Now it's, I got to scrap against this dude who's Gamebred, right?
Right. 100%. And now you also look at the perspective of bringing in Cosmo Alexander, who's a K1 kickboxing legend. This guy's known for his striking. He was working with Kamaru Usman during this. So clearly he's looking to add that striking element. But you go and look at someone like Gilbert Burns striking, who added striking after the fact as well, versus someone like Jorge Masvidal, who's coming in there where that's the bread and butter. So when you go look at something like how Kamaru Usman would go and pressure someone like a Tyron Woodley up against the cage. In the clinch, against the cage, Jorge Masvidal is dangerous. Like, he is one of the most dangerous guys when he's up against the cage, whether it's his back against the cage or vice versa. Yeah. Damian Maia said it himself. One of the most slippery MMA guys that he's ever fought with great Brazilian jiu-jitsu is Jorge Masvidal. Super underrated aspect of his game because he doesn't spam it and he doesn't look for it. He just, if you put him there, he kind of takes what you give him. So if you want to stand, by all means, let me put you to sleep. Let me baptize you, as he likes to say. But we see the like you said again about getting into predictions. We see it opening the line at Masvidal being a 3-1 underdog. I don't see that being a fair representation of what we can expect, for the sole reason that Masvidal is coming in short notice, and if anything, that is going to tweak the mind of someone like Kamaru more than it will Jorge. Jorge said he weighed 192, and so he's losing 22 pounds over the course of 6 days. When I hear someone like Kamaru talking about eating one meal, it's like, buddy, this guy didn't even know he was fighting you 7 days out. It's like he's getting up, he's leaving, he's got to acclimate to a different weather conditions and all these different types of things as well.
And not to mention, you can't tell me that Kamaru Usman's not entering the week heavier than Masvidal is. There's no way. I'm 100% sure Usman's going to step in the cage that night over 192. And he's who has better physique than Kamaru Usman? Come on.
Not many.
Right? Like, yeah, Ngannou, like, they're very
Romero, and probably that's it.
Right. It's a short list of people under 3% body fat who are shred city and jacked like that. And he's one of them. So, if you had one heavy rice meal, Jorge had pizza on the plane while traveling across the world. You're already there. He could have been training that one meal off already. I don't think that weight cutting is going to make a huge difference. I think in the octagon, Usman will be visibly bigger. And I would say, he doesn't want to strike with him, so he's going to try to close the distance. Hey, what happened when Jorge closed the distance on Darren Till? Ba, 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 right? It's just the head bouncing off the cage. Right. Listen, I'm not saying it's going to be the same fight. I think Jorge obviously is way more confident, though, and I think that will bode well for him. And I also think that it could mean that he might blow his wad very early in the fight. I know Jorge would probably usually have no problem, especially we see in the Diaz fight. Like, he could kind of keep that volume and hard-hitting pace for at least 4 rounds, right? Let's say. But now let's say on, coming out of really no training camp. Let's say he only has 15 minutes in him.
Right.
Usman's got a dangerous 15 minutes to look out for. And if he can 100%. Time the takedown really well and just lay on him for the first, let's say, 2 rounds just to tire him out, then okay, maybe that's the way that this fight goes. But one thing I don't think we've actually talked enough about is I didn't realize how much I was looking forward to seeing Usman fight. And it seems kind of weird because his fights aren't always the most thrilling, right? Against Woodley, it was pretty boring. He just beat him up, not in the most entertaining way. And then against Colby, that was a pretty entertaining fight, but it's because they didn't use any grappling, right? They were just 2 B+, let's say, strikers going in there and just throwing, just trying to beat each other up for how long. But when the fight fell through, I was pretty disappointed. I was like, man, like, it still has 2 title fights, but this is not as exciting a fight card anymore. And then they gave us the fight that it should have been all along, right? Jorge gets his title shot. And now we're going to see, the bad blood, a very exciting striker versus a dominant wrestler. And now I'm really excited again. I love it. I didn't realize how much I was looking forward to seeing Usman fight until I realized, swap the opponent. I don't care. I'm only more excitement. I'm only more exciting.
100%. And when I think about this scrap, like, I think that Jorge Masvidal, having the amount of fights that he has underneath his belt, this guy's fought 48 fights. Kamaru's 16-1, so congratulations on the stellar ratio to record. But when I think of short notice, and I think of a guy whose confidence was visibly wavering, I think, and then I look at the other side of the ledger and I see 48 professional fights. I think there's enough to match up the fact that he might not be in the best of shape. And if Kamaru is timid to strike properly, to set up the takedowns a la Ben Askren, there's knees and there's clinch work and Muay Thai waiting for you coming in the other way. So Kamaru can't just run in there and throw a takedown at him, spamming it. This isn't one of those situations where you're watching Curtis Blades fighting Alexander Volkov, and you're like, oh, this guy can't do anything about this. Like, plus Volkov just only had closed guard and know how to be on.
I don't even want to get into that because
like, I can't. I just can't. So when you have to set yourself up to enter that pocket, you have to watch out. And like that is how Masvidal is going to make his money in this fight. I got Masvidal winning, and it's going to turn that division into a complete circus. Because Nate Diaz might be fighting for the championship afterwards.
Yeah, no kidding. Or Connor. You know, man, I'll be honest, I like that you're going with Jorge. And it's such, like I said, your gut will always go with the underdog who has nothing to lose because it's so easy not to. But I was confident in Usman going into it when it was going to be Burns. And I think you were going to be Burns, right? We were going to do our whole prediction that way. I am putting my faith in the champ despite everything else. I think he's got at least enough skill. He only gets better every fight. He's still undefeated in the UFC, right? Every win is becoming more and more convincing. And I think, you know, he'll be stronger. He'll have better cardio. He'll be able to last longer. And, you know, but then again, you always give the striker that chance, right? But I'm going to back the champ. Usman.
Awesome.
But that doesn't mean I don't want Jorge to win. Don't get that twisted. Let's be very, very clear. I love a hectic good time, right? So if we're going to see Jorge, you know, put the welterweight division on notice now, and we're going to get these super crazy fights with, you know, the BMF is fighting this week, and then he's going to fight Connor and then Nate and then all these other things. I'm here for it.
For the record, the BMF belt is not up for grabs because Masvidal said you have to be a BMF in the first place in order to be eligible to win this championship.
See, and that's funny, man. That's why people want to see Masvidal win, because just by saying that automatically takes away anything that Usman could say. Now he's going to come out and say, oh, when he wins, oh, I'm the BMF, right? Because I beat the BMF. No, what you should say is this guy was never a BMF to begin with because he beat this bum Nate Diaz. I'll beat them both the same night. Say something like that. Cut a promo. You know, watch Paul Heyman videos. Come on, man.
That concludes round number 1 for us. Let us know in the comments section what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with Nate? Let us know. Stay tuned for round 2 as well coming up. It's Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus Max Blessed Holloway. We'll check you there.